Going back and reading my diary entries, looking through pictures, I I've talked about some of this. I've definitely mentioned how much Tiny meant to me. Best friend. He was my entire world. One thing that I'll be 33 in a few months, just to put it into perspective. But one thing that it's really taken me like this long to find out in my life is how much, of course, it cannot be mentioned, cannot be underestimated how much this cat meant to me. But the worlds that he opened for me, the things that he taught me, like I said, I stopped eating meat, became a vegetarian because of Tiny. It completely changed my way of thinking. Even my drive in school was enhanced, if you will, altered when I realized how much of my life I wanted to dedicate to animals and how much I owe to them. And Tiny really being the one who opened the door for that. But one thing that stuck out when I was like, again, looking over things to record this series was I changed schools 3 times in the duration of this series, Pure Magic. And the most drastic change was leaving public school where I thrived, where I had friends, where it was very diverse. There was lots of people that I got along with. I feel like my teachers understood me better, to switching to private school. 2 different private schools. And I've done a whole other series purely about my experiences in private school. But that was low key, high key, traumatic AF for me in my life. And so having this cat, having this friend who I felt understood me, did not judge me, but was this constant in my life, I can't use any more words to express what Tiny meant to me. So, one day, I came home from school with my brothers, and immediately I went to the backyard to call my cat. And usually Tiny came running really quick. That's the bond we had. But I thought it was weird because this time I even tried tapping like a can of cat food on the concrete. And usually when I did that, he definitely came running. Like when I called, maybe not always, but when he knew there was food involved, he definitely came running. And I forgot to mention this one part. So when I went up the stairs to my house, I noticed this big black bag on my neighbor's porch. So our 2 staircases are like that, and then, it separates into the entrances. I remember seeing that bag and it stuck out. I just remember noticing it. So, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes of calling my cat and he never came. I went back in the house to try to do some homework. And I'll never forget, maybe an hour in, I got this really, really bad feeling in my stomach. This really bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I actually think that's another thing that really exploded due to my relationship with the animals that was initiated by Tiny, by my relationship with Tiny, is my intuition. And I just had this really horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. So I went to the living room to go crawl under the futon, which, anyway, the sofa, it was up, right? But it was big enough for me to crawl in there. And I just sat in there in the dark. That's all I can say. I had this really bad feeling. So maybe 15, 30 minutes later, my dad comes and he joins me under there, and he tells me that Tiny went to be with Jesus. And I immediately start crying, immediately burst into tears. And he didn't have to tell me what happened, because I put the pieces together, and then I realized what that black bag was on my neighbor's front porch. So my dad asked me then if we wanted to do something, or if I wanted to do something there for my cat, or the county could come and pick up his body. And I said, absolutely not. I said, I want to give my cat a burial. I want to have a place where I can remember him and where I can grieve him. And so we went to go get the bag, me and my brothers and my dad. The other really interesting part about this that didn't make sense, or that, anyway, 20 years later, when I lost my second cat, Pokey, it was a very odd set of circumstances that, like when I lost Tiny, my mom actually wasn't there. So she was actually on a business trip when I lost Tiny. And then I just remember that it was actually my father who was there with me in this odd set of events, even though I've always been closer to my mom and my mom's side of the family. So we went to go get the bag. I remember feeling the weight of it, like heavier than you would normally notice a black garbage bag. Or maybe it was that it was so concentrated in one small area. We went to the backyard, and I don't actually remember if my dad started digging a hole yet, but at one point, I think it was before we started that, we looked into the bag, and my dad said, "Oh, he looks like he's sleeping." So I went to take a look, and I lost it. I completely lost it. And I ran up the stairs, and that was that.